The morning sky over New Providence was the color of honey when the ships arrived. Maria Chen stood at the window of the Colonial Administration Building, watching farmers tend their fields in the valley below. Kepler 442b had been humanity's success story, a world where wheat grew tall and children played without fear. 2,300,000 souls called this place home. The sensors screamed first. Then the sky darkened. 12 massive vessels descended through the clouds, each one larger than the entire settlement of New Providence. Their hulls were dark green, scaled like reptilian skin, and they moved with predatory grace. Maria's hands shook as she reached for the communications panel. Unknown vessels. This is Colonial Administrator Maria Chen of Kepler 442b. State your intentions. The response came in a voice like grinding stones. Primitive mammals. Your world now belongs to the Zrathian Dominion. Surrender all resources and technology. Your people will serve us or die. Maria looked at the emergency protocols on her screen. Her finger hovered over the red button. Every human colony knew the rules. Every administrator carried the same burden. She pressed it. This is your only warning, Maria said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Leave now. You have 1 hour. We are a protected species under our own jurisdiction. Leave or face consequences. Laughter erupted from the communication channel. War Marshal Krasthor appeared on the screen, his yellow eyes gleaming with amusement. His scales were deep crimson, marking him as high caste among his people. Behind him, other Zrathian officers joined in the mockery. Protected? Krasthor hissed. By whom? Your species stumbled into space technology barely 2 centuries ago. You are children playing with tools you do not understand. We have conquered 40 systems. We have crushed species far stronger than you. And you dare threaten us? Maria's jaw tightened. I'm not threatening. I'm warning, please just leave. Pathetic, Krasthor said. The screen went dark. 53 minutes later, the first strike hit New Providence. The orbital lance burned through the atmosphere like the finger of an angry god. The beam touched the city center and everything within 2 kilometers simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no fire. Just absence. 300,000 people vanished in an instant. Maria died without knowing it. Her last thought a prayer that someone had heard the warning. The second city, Harmony Falls, lasted another 10 minutes. The children were in school when the beam struck. Teachers tried to shield their students with their own bodies. It made no difference. 400,000 more souls joined the void. Port Victoria was third. The spaceport had time to scramble ships, but the Zrathian fleet destroyed them like insects. Only one old freighter, the Destiny's Child, managed to jump to hyperspace. Its hull was scarred, its engines failing, but Captain Marcus Webb pushed the ship beyond its limits. In the cargo hold, 87 survivors huddled together. In the ship's computers, black box footage documented everything. Back on Kepler 442b, the bombardment stopped. 847,000 humans lay dead. The survivors crawled from wreckage, calling for loved ones who would never answer. Krasthor's landing forces descended in massive dropships. Zrathian soldiers poured out, their plasma weapons ready, their scaled armor gleaming. They herded survivors into groups, separating the strong from the weak. The work camps would need laborers. The rest would be eliminated. The War Marshal stood atop a ruined building in what had been New Providence. He activated his communication array and broadcast across known space, making sure every civilized world received his message. Let this be a lesson, Krasthor announced. The Zrathian Dominion takes what it wishes. The humans claimed protection. They claimed consequences. Where are their protectors now? Where are their consequences? They are dust. They are nothing. Any world that harbors human refugees will be next. This is the price of resistance. Across the galaxy, 100 species watched the broadcast. Some felt pity. Others felt relief that the Zrathians had chosen a different target. A few felt concern about what came next. On Earth, in the headquarters of the United Human Space Navy, Admiral James Blackwood watched the broadcast 3 times. His hands gripped the edge of his desk until his knuckles turned white. His sister had lived on Kepler 442b. She had been a teacher in Harmony Falls. Her name was Rebecca, and she loved her students more than anything in the world. The other admirals and generals filed into the room. Their faces were stone, their eyes were fire. How long until the Destiny's Child arrives? Blackwood asked. 6 hours, sir, replied Commander Foster. Captain Webb is pushing the engines past safe limits. Get me everything. Every second of footage. Every sensor reading. I want to know exactly what happened. Blackwood stood and looked at the faces around him. And activate protocol retribution. The room fell silent. Protocol retribution had been created after first contact, when humanity realized they were not alone in the universe. It was the plan nobody wanted to use. The plan for genocide against humanity. Sir, General Park said carefully, protocol retribution means total mobilization. Every ship. Every soldier. It means we commit everything. They were warned, Blackwood said quietly. They chose this. Outside the window, Earth continued its slow rotation. Peaceful, beautiful, unaware that its children had just declared a different kind of war. Not for conquest, not for resources, for something the galaxy had forgotten humans possessed. Justice, and humanity had a very long memory. The footage spread like wildfire through human networks. Within 18 hours, every human from Earth to the furthest mining colony had seen it. They watched cities vanish. They heard Maria Chen's warning. They saw Krasthor's mocking laughter. They counted the dead. The reaction was not what the galaxy expected. There were no riots, no panic, no desperate calls for peace negotiations. Instead, something cold and ancient awakened in humanity's collective consciousness. Something that remembered when humans were not the dominant species on Earth. Something that remembered when survival meant hunting or being hunted. Dr. Sarah Kim stood before the Galactic Council on the neutral station Concordia. She was a xenoanthropologist, a human who studied alien cultures. She had spent years trying to explain humanity to the galaxy. Now she had a different message. You don't understand what you're seeing, Sarah told the assembled alien representatives. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. You think humans are panicking. You think we're preparing a desperate defense. You're wrong. Ambassador Threx of the Villani Collective, a species of peaceful merchants, leaned forward. His translator rendered his concern clearly. Dr. Kim, we've seen the footage. The Zrathians destroyed 3 of your cities. Surely your people must be terrified? Sarah smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Ambassador, let me tell you about Earth. My homeworld was a death world. Everything there evolved to kill or avoid being killed. Humans were not the strongest. Not the fastest. Not the most poisonous. Do you know how we survived? The council waited. We learned to hunt. Not just for food. We hunted prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We tracked wounded animals for days. We never gave up. We never forgot. And we shared information. When one human learned where prey hid, all humans knew. That instinct never left us. The Zrathians think they won a battle. They don't realize they just became prey. Admiral Blackwood stood in the command center of the UHSN headquarters. The room was massive, filled with holographic displays showing every human military asset. Ships that had been on patrol were returning. Reserve fleets were activating. Construction yards were working triple shifts. The Destiny's Child had arrived. Captain Webb and his survivors were in medical care, but the footage was now in military hands. Intelligence officers had analyzed every frame, every sensor reading, every communication. Status report, Blackwood ordered. Commander Foster stepped forward. All defensive fleets have been recalled. The 1st through 8th attack fleets are mobilizing. The stealth destroyer Silent Knife is ready for deep reconnaissance. Total mobilization will be complete in 72 hours. Not fast enough, Blackwood said. I want forward elements moving in 48 hours. Sir, we're assembling the largest human fleet in history. Logistics alone. The Zrathians are celebrating their victory, Blackwood interrupted. They're dividing their forces. They think they have time. I want them to be wrong. I want our scouts in their space before they realize the hunt has started. He turned to face the room. Officers from every branch of human military stood at attention. Some had family on Kepler 442b. All of them had watched the footage. They were given a warning, Blackwood said, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. 1 hour to leave. They laughed. They murdered 847,000 civilians, men, women, children. They did it to send a message. He paused, letting the silence grow heavy. Now we send ours. We're not going to rush in with fury and rage. We're going to be methodical, patient. We're going to track every Zarathian ship, map every supply route, identify every military installation, and then we're going to take them apart piece by piece. Because that's what humans do. We hunt, and we never stop hunting until the prey can no longer run. The officers remained silent, but their expressions spoke volumes. This was not a speech to inspire courage. This was a promise of vengeance. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Silent Knife. Her ship was one of humanity's most advanced stealth destroyers, capable of moving through space almost invisible to sensors. Her crew was handpicked, the best of the best, Captain, her first officer said. We've received our orders. Deep reconnaissance into Zarathian space. We're to gather intelligence on fleet movements, supply lines, and communication protocols. Elena nodded. She had volunteered for this mission the moment the call went out. She had no family on Kepler 442b, but that didn't matter. They were human. That made them family. How long until we reach the border? She asked. 16 hours at maximum stealth speed. Then let's make them count. I want every system checked triple. The moment we cross into their space, we're ghosts. They don't see us. They don't hear us. We watch, we learn, and we report back. Understood? Yes, ma'am. Across human space, similar scenes played out on hundreds of ships. Captains received orders. Engineers prepared weapons. Soldiers checked equipment. But there was no rush, no chaos. Everything moved with cold efficiency. On the Zarathian homeworld, War Marshal Krasthor celebrated his victory. The Dominion's leaders praised his swift conquest. Plans were already being made to target the next human world. They would crush humanity system by system until the species begged for mercy. Krasthor's intelligence officers reported increased human ship movements, but he dismissed them. Defensive repositioning, nothing more. Humans were weak. They would negotiate. They would surrender. They always did. He was wrong. In the darkness between stars, human ships moved silently towards Zarathian space. They carried weapons, yes, but more importantly, they carried something the Zarathians had never faced before. They carried the patient, relentless determination of a species that had spent millions of years perfecting the art of the hunt. The prey had no idea the hunters were coming. The first Zarathian supply convoy disappeared on a Tuesday. The convoy consisted of 5 cargo ships and 2 escort frigates, traveling from the Zarathian industrial world of Krath 5 to a forward military base. They entered hyperspace on schedule. They never arrived at their destination. No distress signal. No debris field. Just silence. Commander Vexlar of the Zarathian 4th Fleet reviewed the report with growing irritation. Supply ships went missing sometimes. Pirates, maybe. Equipment failure. It happened. The second convoy disappeared 3 days later. Then a third. Now Vexlar was concerned. He ordered patrol ships to investigate the routes. They found nothing. Empty space. No evidence of attacks. No wreckage. The ships simply vanished between hyperspace jumps. What Vexlar didn't know was that Captain Elena Rodriguez and the Silent Knife were watching. Her ship hung in the darkness, systems running so cold that even active scans passed right over them. When Zarathian ships dropped out of hyperspace, human weapons reached out with silent precision. Railgun rounds moving at relativistic speeds punched through hulls before sensors even detected the attack. By the time the Zarathians realized they were under fire, it was over. The Silent Knife took what it needed from the wreckage. Navigation logs, communication codes, fleet positions. Then they erased all evidence and moved on. Captain, Lieutenant Chen said from the sensor station, we've intercepted another communication. The Zarathians are getting nervous. They're calling it ghost attacks. Elena allowed herself a small smile. Good, let them be nervous. Upload the data to command and plot a course for the next target. We have more hunting to do. Across Zarathian space, similar attacks multiplied. Human stealth ships struck and vanished like phantoms. Military outposts on frontier worlds went dark. Garrison troops reported strange sensor readings, then nothing. Investigation teams arrived to find bases intact but empty, all personnel dead without signs of struggle. The Zarathians didn't understand. They were warriors. They fought face to face with honor and strength. This was something else. This was terror. War Marshal Krasthor stood in his command center staring at the holographic map. Red markers indicated lost assets. There were too many. Far too many. How? He demanded. How are the humans doing this? Our sensors should detect their ships. His intelligence officer, a younger Zarathian named Sektar, looked uncomfortable. War Marshal, we believe the humans have stealth technology far beyond what we anticipated. Our intelligence report said humans were technologically inferior. We were wrong. Krasthor's claws scraped against the command table. Then upgrade our sensors. Deploy more patrols. Find them! But finding the humans was like trying to catch smoke. The Silent Knife and her sister ships moved through Zrathian space like predators in tall grass. They watched. They learned. They struck when ready and disappeared before reinforcements arrived. Then the psychological warfare began. A Zarathian patrol found the destroyer Claw of Victory drifting near the border. The ship was intact. Power was still running. But the entire crew was dead, killed by some kind of gas that left no trace. In the bridge, painted in large letters across the main view screen, was a message in the Zarathian language. 47,000. We're counting. The patrol captain immediately reported to high command. The message spread through the fleet like poison. Some dismissed it as human desperation. Others felt the first stirrings of fear. The messages kept coming. Every human attack left another number, another reminder. The Zarathians tried to suppress the information, but it was too late. Soldiers talked. Officers whispered. Everyone knew. The humans were keeping score. Dr. Sarah Kim addressed the Galactic Council again, this time with new information. The assembled aliens listened with growing unease as she explained human military doctrine. You asked why we're not seeking peace negotiations, Sarah said. It's simple. The Zarathians didn't attack our military. They attacked civilians. They murdered children. In human culture, there are lines you don't cross. They crossed every single one. Ambassador Threx shifted uncomfortably. But surely continued violence only leads to more death. Both sides could come to terms. No, Sarah interrupted. You still don't understand. This isn't a war in the traditional sense. This is a hunt. The Zarathians are prey now. They just don't realize how thoroughly they're being stalked. She activated a holographic display showing Zarathian space. Red lines crisscrossed the map, showing supply routes, patrol patterns, fleet movements. We've been in their systems for 2 weeks. They've lost 47 ships and 13 military installations. They still don't know where we are or when we'll strike next. We've infiltrated their communications. We know their fleet positions better than they do. We've identified every military target in their empire. The council chamber fell silent. What are your intentions? Asked the presider, an ancient insectoid being who had seen 100 wars. Sarah's expression was cold. Total victory. The Zarathian military will be dismantled. Their leadership will face justice. And every species in the galaxy will learn one lesson. Don't ignore a human warning. Back in Zarathian space, the Silent Knife approached its most daring mission yet. A major Zarathian command station orbited the industrial world of Krath Prime. The station coordinated fleet movements for the entire sector. It was heavily defended with sensor arrays that could detect a ship light years away, or so the Zarathians thought. We're in position, Elena said quietly. Her ship drifted close to a debris field, using the wreckage to mask their already minimal signature. Chen, you're up. Lieutenant Chen was the best electronic warfare specialist in the human fleet. Her fingers danced across her console, probing the station's defenses. They're using rotating encryption keys. Standard Zarathian security protocol. Give me 5 minutes. She found the weakness in 3, a maintenance port that accepted diagnostic signals without heavy encryption. From there, she wormed her way into the station's computer core. I'm in, Chen said, downloading everything. Fleet positions, communication codes, supply schedules. Wait, they have files on human colonies. They're planning the next attack. Elena's jaw tightened. Copy everything. Plant the surveillance suite. We're leaving them a present. As Chen worked, the Silent Knife remained perfectly still. Inside the station, Zarathian officers went about their duties, completely unaware that human eyes watched their every move. Unaware that their secure database was being copied. Unaware that sophisticated AI surveillance programs were being installed in their systems. Done, Chen said. Package delivered. Time to go. The Silent Knife slipped away as silently as it had arrived. Behind them, the surveillance AI activated. From now on, every communication, every order, every plan made in that station would be transmitted directly to human intelligence. The Zarathians had become transparent, War Marshal. Krasthor received the report about the command. Station breach 2 days later. By then, humans had already acted on the stolen intelligence. 3 supply depots were destroyed. A fleet rendezvous was ambushed. An entire battle group found itself surrounded by human forces that shouldn't have known they were there. For the first time since the attack on Kepler 442b, Krasthor felt genuine fear. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were hunting with terrifying efficiency. They knew things they shouldn't know. They struck where defenses were weakest. They disappeared before reinforcements arrived. He looked at his tactical display and realized the terrible truth. The Zrathian Dominion, conqueror of 40 systems, was losing a war they didn't even know had started. And somewhere in the darkness, human ships continued their patient, methodical hunt. The human fleet arrived at the edge of the Zrathian home system on a cold morning. There were no fanfares, no dramatic speeches over open channels. They simply dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation and began their advance. Admiral Blackwood stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Retribution, watching his tactical display. 247 human warships surrounded him. Behind them, support vessels and supply ships waited. It was the largest human military force ever assembled. "Open all channels," Blackwood ordered. "Every frequency. I want every Zrathian in this system to hear this." The communications officer nodded. "Channels open, sir." Blackwood's voice was calm, almost conversational. "This is Admiral James Blackwood of the United Human Space Navy. 5 weeks ago, you attacked our colony at Kepler 442b. You were given warning. 1 hour to leave peacefully. You laughed. You killed 847,000 of our people. You murdered children. You broadcast your victory across the galaxy. You thought we were weak." He paused, letting his words sink in. "You were wrong. Now face the consequences." The Zrathian defense fleet scrambled to respond. War Marshal Krasthor's command ship led 72 vessels toward the human formation. It should have been enough. The Zrathians had superior numbers on paper. They had defended their homeworld from countless attacks. But they had never faced humans before. The battle began with a weapon the Zrathians had never seen. Thousands of small objects separated from the human ships, accelerating to incredible speeds. The Zrathians thought they were missiles and activated their point defense systems. They weren't missiles. They were kinetic kill vehicles. Simple chunks of metal accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. They had no warheads, no explosives. They didn't need them. Mass and velocity were weapon enough. The first wave tore through the Zrathian formation like a storm. Shields designed to stop energy weapons did nothing against solid projectiles moving so fast. Ships crumpled. Hulls shattered. Reactors exploded. "Second wave," Blackwood said quietly. "Launch the drone swarms." Another cloud of objects erupted from the human fleet. These were intelligent. Thousands of combat drones, each one coordinated by advanced AI, each one programmed to find and destroy. They moved like a school of fish, flowing around the Zrathian ships, finding weak points, exploiting every vulnerability. The Zrathians tried to respond. Their plasma weapons fired. Their missiles launched. But human electronic warfare systems turned their targeting to chaos. Missiles flew past empty space. Plasma beams hit nothing but vacuum. The few shots that connected splashed against human shields with minimal effect. "Third wave," Blackwood continued. "Plasma lance batteries. Target their command ship." The Retribution's main weapons spoke. Beams of superheated plasma, focused and controlled by magnetic fields, reached across space in microseconds. They struck Krasthor's flagship directly. Shields flared and collapsed. Armor melted. The ship staggered in space like a wounded animal. "Disable only," Blackwood ordered. "I want them alive." The human fleet systematically took apart the Zrathian defenders. It wasn't even a battle. It was an execution. Ship after ship fell dark, engines destroyed, weapons offline. The few that tried to flee found their hyperspace drives targeted and neutralized before they could jump. In 37 minutes, it was over. Krasthor pulled himself from the wreckage of his command station. His flagship was crippled but intact. His crew was alive but defeated. Emergency lights flickered. Somewhere, alarms wailed uselessly. "War Marshal," his communications officer said weakly. "The humans are hailing us." Krasthor wanted to refuse. Wanted to fight. But he had nothing left to fight with. "Answer it." Blackwood's face appeared on the shattered view screen. The human looked tired but determined. "War Marshal Krasthor, you and your senior officers will be taken into custody. You will be tried for war crimes against humanity. Resist and we will board your ship by force." "You wouldn't dare," Krasthor hissed. "We are the Zrathian Dominion." You were the Zrathian Dominion," Blackwood interrupted. Now you're war criminals awaiting judgment. You have 10 minutes to prepare for boarding. If you resist, we will cut our way in. Your choice." The screen went dark. Krasthor looked around his ruined bridge. His officers stared at him, waiting for orders. For the first time in his life, he had none to give. They had lost, completely, utterly. The humans had warned them. They had ignored it. Now they faced the consequences. Human boarding teams entered the flagship with precision, Marines in powered armor, moving like mechanical ghosts through the corridors. The Zrathians didn't resist. What was the point? They were defeated, but the human fleet wasn't finished. Across the Zrathian home system, human ships methodically destroyed every military installation. Orbital weapons platforms exploded silently in the vacuum. Shipyards capable of building warships were reduced to scrap. Ground-based military complexes were hit with precision, strikes that destroyed weapons and command centers while leaving civilian areas untouched. The Zrathian civilian population watched in terror from their homes. They saw their mighty fleet destroyed. They saw their defenses crumble. They waited for the orbital bombardment that would mirror what had happened to Kepler 442b. It never came. Blackwood addressed the Zrathian people directly. His message broadcast to every screen, every device in the system. People of Zrathos, your military has been defeated. Your leadership will be tried for their crimes. But we are not here to commit genocide. We are not here to enslave you. We are here for justice. He gestured off-screen and footage began to play. The attack on Kepler 442b. Maria Chen's warning. The orbital bombardment. The death count climbing. Children vanishing in beams of light. Your leaders did this. Your leaders chose this path. They were warned. They laughed. Now they face the consequences of their actions. The footage ended. Blackwood's face returned. Your government is dissolved. Your military is dismantled. You will be placed under galactic supervision until you prove you can exist peacefully. Any who resist will be treated as war criminals. Any who cooperate will be treated fairly. He leaned forward slightly. We don't want to be your conquerors. We don't want your resources or your people. We want justice for our dead. Nothing more. Nothing less. The Zrathian High Command chamber was filled with human Marines when the other Zrathian leaders were arrested. Senators, generals, ministers, anyone who had ordered or approved the attack. They were taken peacefully, loaded onto human transports and prepared for trial. Dr. Sarah Kim arrived on the Retribution 3 days later. She found Blackwood in his ready room, staring at a photograph. His sister Rebecca, smiling at the camera, surrounded by her students. James, Sarah said softly. We won, did we? Blackwood didn't look up from the photograph. 847,000 people are still dead. My sister is still gone. We destroyed their fleet. We captured their leaders. But we can't bring back the dead. Sarah sat down across from him. No, but we made sure their deaths mattered. The galaxy watched what happened here. They saw what happens when you ignore a human warning. They saw that we don't start wars, but we finish them. They saw justice. Blackwood finally looked at her. Justice. Is that what this was? Sometimes it felt like revenge. Maybe it was both, Sarah admitted. But James, you had the power to do to them what they did to us. You could have bombarded their cities, killed their civilians, become the monster they were. You didn't. You targeted only military assets. You're putting them on trial instead of just executing them. That's justice. That's what makes us different. Blackwood set down the photograph carefully. The trial starts next week. The Galactic Council will observe. We'll present all the evidence. Every recording. Every sensor log. The whole galaxy will see what they did. And what we did in response, Sarah added. That's important too. Outside the window, human ships maintained orbit over Zrathos. On the surface, reconstruction teams were already helping to repair the damage from the military strikes. Medical supplies were being distributed. The message was clear. Humans could be merciless to those who harmed them, but fair to those who accepted peace. The hunt was over. Now came the judgment. The trial lasted 6 weeks. The Galactic Council chamber on Concordia Station had never been so full. Representatives from every known species crowded the observation galleries. News feeds broadcast the proceedings across civilized space. Everyone wanted to see how humanity dispensed justice. War Marshal Krasthor and 47 other Zrathian military and political leaders sat in the defendant section. They were not chained or restrained. Human guards stood nearby but did not threaten. This was not a show trial. It was the real thing. Admiral Blackwood served as the primary witness. He stood before the council and presented the evidence methodically. Sensor logs from Kepler 442b, communication recordings, Maria Chen's warning, Krasthor's mocking response, the orbital bombardment, the death toll. 847,000 civilians, Blackwood said, his voice steady. The defendants were given 1 hour to leave peacefully. They were warned of consequences. They chose to attack. They chose to murder. They chose to broadcast their actions as a threat to other species. The council judges, beings from 12 different species, watched the footage in silence. Some looked disturbed. Others showed no emotion. All of them understood the gravity of what they witnessed. The defense argued that the Zrathians were following their cultural traditions of conquest, that they didn't understand human warnings, that this was simply how their species operated. Dr. Sarah Kim destroyed those arguments with calm precision. The defendants spoke clear standard galactic language. They understood the warning. They chose to ignore it. Cultural differences do not excuse genocide. If they were allowed to continue, how many more species would they have slaughtered? The evidence was overwhelming. The testimonies were detailed. After 6 weeks, the verdict was unanimous. Krasthor and his senior commanders were found guilty of war crimes. They were sentenced to life imprisonment under galactic supervision. The Zrathian government was dissolved. Their military was permanently restricted to defensive forces only. They would pay reparations to human survivors and help rebuild Kepler 442b. Galactic observers would monitor them for the next century. As the sentences were read, Krasthor finally spoke. "I underestimated you. I thought you were weak. I was wrong." Blackwood looked at him coldly. "Yes, you were." 6 months after the trial, Kepler 442b looked different. The craters left by the orbital bombardment were being filled. New buildings rose where cities had burned. The survivors worked alongside human volunteers from 100 other worlds. Construction drones hummed through the air. Life was returning. In orbit, a massive structure took shape. The Kepler Memorial Station, part museum, part monument, part warning. Its walls would display the names of all 847,000 victims. Its archives would preserve every recording, every piece of evidence from the attack. Future generations would come here to remember. Admiral Blackwood stood at the dedication ceremony. Survivors gathered around him. Dr. Sarah Kim stood nearby. Captain Elena Rodriguez was there too, her crew of the Silent Knife present to honor the fallen. "We built this station for 3 reasons, Blackwood said to the assembled crowd. "First, to remember. Every name here represents a life stolen, a future erased. We will not forget them." He gestured to the wall behind him, where names were being etched in permanent metal. "Second, to teach. This station will serve as an educational center. Every species in the galaxy will learn what happened here. They will understand the consequences of ignoring warnings. They will see what happens when you mistake human patience for weakness." The crowd was silent, respectful. "Third, to warn. This memorial is a promise. We gave the Zrathians a chance for peace. They chose violence. We responded with justice. Any species that makes the same mistake will face the same consequences. We do not want to be feared. We want to be left in peace. But if forced to choose between being victims and being hunters, humanity will always choose survival." The ceremony ended with a moment of silence. 847,000 seconds. 235 hours. Almost 10 full days of silence to honor the dead. News feeds across the galaxy broadcast it. Every species watched. Every species understood the message. Don't test humanity. The Galactic Council formally invited humanity to join as a full member. The invitation came with respect that had been missing before. Other species that had considered humanity weak now reconsidered. Trade agreements became more favorable. Disputed territories were suddenly resolved peacefully. Nobody wanted to be the next example. Dr. Sarah Kim gave a lecture at the Galactic University, speaking to students from 40 different species. "Humans don't want to be warriors," she explained. "We prefer to be explorers, traders, artists, scientists. But we remember our evolution. We remember when we were prey. We developed tools, teamwork, and persistence to survive. Those instincts never left us." A student raised a tentacle. "But surely warfare is inefficient. Wouldn't negotiation always be better?" Sarah smiled sadly. In a perfect galaxy, yes. But the galaxy isn't perfect. Sometimes you meet those who only understand strength. The key is knowing when to negotiate and when to act. Humans tried negotiation. We gave warning. When that was answered with genocide, we had no choice but to respond. Another student asked, "Are humans angry at the Zrathians?" "Some are," Sarah admitted. "But most understand that the individuals responsible were punished. The Zrathian people as a whole are not our enemies. Their leadership chose violence. The people are now rebuilding their society. We help them where we can because we believe in justice, not revenge." In a small apartment on Zrathos, a young Zrathian student named Sek watched the lecture on his screen. He was part of the new generation born after the war. They learned human history now. They studied the warning signs they had missed. They understood their parents' mistakes. Sek's homework assignment was to write about humanity's response to Kepler 442b. He typed slowly, choosing his words carefully. "Humans showed us that mercy and justice can coexist. They destroyed our military but spared our people. They punished the guilty but helped the innocent. They taught us that strength without wisdom leads to destruction. We were warned. We didn't listen. We paid the price. Now we learn." His teacher, herself a survivor of the war, read the essay and nodded. The young were learning. Perhaps the Zrathians could become better. 20 years later, a new species made first contact with humanity. The Kelvar were a proud warrior race, similar in many ways to what the Zrathians had been. They approached human space with their weapons powered and their shields active. The human diplomatic vessel approached peacefully. Captain Liu, now an old woman but still sharp, opened communications. "Welcome to human space. We come in peace and hope for friendly relations." The Kelvar commander studied the small human ship. "Your vessel is tiny. Your weapons are minimal. Why should we treat you as equals?" Liu smiled. "Because we're the species that took apart the Zrathian dominion in 6 weeks. Because we're the species that tracks our prey across galaxies and never gives up. Because we gave them warning and they ignored it. Don't make the same mistake." There was a long pause. Then the Kelvar commander's tone changed completely. "We studied your history. We learned about Kepler 442b. We come in peace and heard your warnings loud and clear." The diplomatic meetings went smoothly after that. Admiral Blackwood, now retired and teaching at the Naval Academy on Earth, told his students about those early days. "We don't want to be feared," he repeated, the same words from 20 years ago. "We want to be left in peace. But if forced to choose between being victims and being hunters, humanity will always choose survival. Always." He showed them footage of the Kepler Memorial Station. 847,000 names etched in metal. These people died because someone ignored a warning. Our duty is to make sure their deaths meant something. We made the galaxy safer. We established rules that protect everyone. We showed that even in vengeance, humanity can be just. A student asked, "Sir, do you think we'll ever have to do it again?" Blackwood looked at the young faces before him. "I hope not. I truly hope not. But if we do, we'll be ready, because that's what humanity does. We protect our own. We remember our dead, and we never ever forget a warning ignored." Outside the Academy windows, Earth rotated peacefully. Ships came and went from orbit, carrying trade goods and travelers. Humans lived their lives in peace, exploring, creating, building. But in every star system, in every ship, in every military installation, the lesson remained. Humanity preferred peace. Humanity offered warnings, but humanity never forgot. And humanity never stopped hunting until justice was served. The galaxy learned its lesson well. Never ignore a human warning. The words were inscribed on the Kepler Memorial Station in 100 languages. A reminder, a promise, a warning that echoed across the stars. Humanity had shown the galaxy what they were capable of. Now the galaxy chose peace, and that was exactly what humanity had wanted all along.